My brothers and sisters, may the Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. One of the scribes came to Jesus and asked him, "Which is the first of all the commandments?" Jesus replied, "The first is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." The scribe said to him, "Well said, teacher, you are right in saying, He is the one, and there is no other than He. And to love Him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is worth more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." And when Jesus saw that he answered with understanding, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And no one dared to ask him any more questions. The Gospel of the Lord. The two commandments which Jesus cites today in this account from Mark would have been familiar to any pious Jew. They would have been part of their teaching. Both come from different books of the initial five Pentateuch books of the Mosaic Law. The difference, however, is what makes it so revolutionary is that when Jesus is asked the question, what is the greatest commandment, he takes the two of them and puts them together. And he suggests that they not only complement one another, but they are in fact both necessary in order to really fulfill the best of what God calls us to. The first, of course, is that realization on the part of Israel that there's only one God, and the relationship is so binding that everything about us should be linked to that. And to this day, pious Jews wear some kind of a form of a little container, those especially of the Orthodox tradition, that carries that particular commandment in it. The other commandment was found in the book of Deuteronomy, and it is an awareness, first of all, sadly, the Israelites only saw it as referring to their own kin, those who were their neighbors, technically speaking. And so there was always kind of a battle during the course of that journey that they had as to whether or not they accepted other people the same. And so when Jesus comes along, he begins to suggest that it's broader than all of that it's not just your kinsmen, it's not just those who necessarily are of the same culture or mindset or philosophy or even religion as you are. It is rather the realization that every person is our neighbor. Another time, Jesus asked the question, well, who is my neighbor? And he ends up giving us that classic story of the Good Samaritan, the very last example or witness that a pious Jew would expect to hear. And yet Jesus suggests that's precisely how it happens. And consistently in the course of Jesus' teaching, he keeps putting the two together, even to the point of saying that when you feed those who are hungry and you clothe those who are naked, you are in fact doing that to me. The relationship is so intimate between the neighbor and ourselves and between God and us. We know that that's the challenge to always live that out. We know sometimes we fail in fulfilling it, and yet the call constantly is to reinforce for us the reality that that is how, in fact, we mark ourselves as being followers of Jesus, not just by how we call ourselves in worship to God, but how we call ourselves and care for each other.